Hi there, I'm Shanna Smith, and today I'll be talking with you about personal information and the three levels of government control over public education. To first cover an introduction, I did see many names that were familiar to me, so I think I know quite a few of you already, but I am Shanna Smith, and I am a school counselor in a small town south of Topeka. I've been in a pre-K through 12 setting. Now, this is my 11th year. And prior to that, I worked at Emporia State University as a mental health counselor. And then I switched gears to the position that I have now. And I really like working with the students. So, a little bit more about my personal world, my home front. These are my people. I've been married for 18 years. My husband is a science teacher and football and track coach. So right now is his off season, so he's home a lot more right now. So I like that. And then I have two kiddos, both teenagers. So I'm literally around teenagers 24/7. Which most days is fun and interesting. Other days, not so fun, but still interesting. Uh, I really, really enjoy working with the youth that I get to. Just kind of, usually they're a bucket filler. Sometimes they wear you out, though. The other thing that's here on my screen is my vision board. This is a new presentation and initiative that we've been working on in our district about personal growth. And so my personal goals right now are to continue working on my building principal endorsement, hopefully get a little more regular with my exercise, and just live more in the now. And actually, I'm going to be presenting on this on Wednesday at the Safe and Supportive Schools Conference for KSDE. Let's see here. Now, how do we go from talking about one individual and then moving on to talking about education and government? Well, one person in education can do some, but all of us collectively can do so much more. And Henry Ford, very, very bright guy. Coming together is a beginning. I believe that's our history. Staying together is progress. I feel like that's the challenge we have right now, and hopefully we can move forward, and our outcome will be success. So hopefully we can learn from Henry. Okay, moving forward. So we're going to talk a little bit about the different types of government, and I am going to click the slide back. There we go. So the different levels of government support of public schools. Within the federal school system, or of the federal system, they help with 10% of a school budgets, roughly that. Now, that 10% does not come without strings. They have a lot of expectations and requirements of folks that are going to be accepting that money. They are the third largest provider of discretionary funds, which is a significant amount. But when you put it in the big picture, 10% is a lot less than I thought that they provided. So I learned from this. The other piece of this in the blue is the responsibilities piece. What do they do? Their actions. And they have laws in general, equal opportunity, and those very important laws. They also will have certain policies and things in place. But overall, it's a very broad scope. Most things they delegate onto the state. Because of the 10th Amendment as well. So when we're talking about the state, they fund almost half of school budgets. And they take a little different approach than the federal government, and they usually have pretty significant oversight. They're responsible for setting up the framework for education in our schools. They can delegate that piece, but they don't here in Kansas. And then the part that is delegated is the details piece, how to make that work. Here's your framework. This is what we need. This is what needs to happen. Now you do it which way you want to an extent. A little bit like project-based learning. And then we move on to our local government, and they fund about half of the school budget as well. The school board is responsible for collecting that money. I was not aware of that. And then also, it varies from community to community based on their socioeconomic status. So I think that's makes things a little more challenging for a lot more people, because we're not always able to provide exactly the same thing for everyone, because some places just have far less income. So I think you have to accommodate for that in some way. And then at this level, there's significant accountability and responsibility for implementation of the outcomes and getting the outcomes. There's a lot of things that have to be taken care of, very detail oriented. And I think we really, I don't know, I think I underestimated the amount of pressure that is on the local piece after reading all of this. So I definitely learned something. We're going to move on and talk about the duties and responsibilities of each level of government that relates to public education. So we'll start with the federal. And the federal, they say that states can receive federal funding provided that they meet the requirements. We talked a little bit about that. They're ensuring some very important things, right to a free and appropriate education, a high quality education, and protecting the civil rights of all of us, and providing resources that most need, implementing and enforcing equal opportunity, which is very, very important. And then also enforcing other educational acts that are within their scope. But remember, they're also limited to certain pieces because of the 10th Amendment. When we're talking about what their staff is comprised of, they actually have a relatively small staff considering what they do. They have not grown in staff size in a number of years, even though I think they've probably increased the number of initiatives that they're trying to carry off. And those are paid positions. I don't believe that they're voted in or anything like that, although the educational chair from the president, they are appointed by the president. So, and then we go on to the state, and states and communities, as well as lots of organizations, we all come together to develop the curriculum, the requirements for enrollment and graduation. This is really important, that this is that framework that I was speaking of. And they're very important pieces, but typically it's not a decision that's made unilaterally. A lot of people are coming together and meeting and coming up with what they feel is making an informed decision, and making decisions for those in the state. They're responsible for meeting the requirements that are outlined above, and checking and making sure that those are being carried out. Our governor is an elected position, and then there are some pieces in the State Department that are as well, but the majority of staff are paid positions, and I would say there's quite a number of staff carrying off those responsibilities. When we get to the local level funds, like I said, about half of a school's budget. This varies from community to community. There's significant accountability and responsibility when it comes to the local level, because all of those expectations that are filtering down from the federal and state governments, they land on your table. And so we're responsible for implementing a plan to reach those outcomes. And then our school board is the governing body technically. And for my district, they are a voted position, all of them. And then obviously our superintendent is a piece of that, but hers is a paid position. And then the rest of us serve under her, and efforts to help our district reach the goals that are outlined by the state and the federal government. Most influential CLOs goes to Okay, just kidding. CLO 6.1 is really speaks to the local government level. This is where we evaluate, develop, and implement what needs to happen um, for our school. These are the nuts and bolts of things. When we get to 6.2, we need to look at data to see if we're reaching the goals and evaluate what's being done and maybe advise differently to help people and schools reach their goals. Even beyond that, the federal government is going to look at a more holistic picture of the nation as a whole, and to see um, how we're doing, communicate that feedback on how things are going, and then also implement any new laws or rights or policies that we would need in order to promote student and adult well-being. So the federal government would be the last piece for 6.3. Teamwork makes the dream work. When talking about how this all comes together, um, I took this away from our building finance class that we have to take for this program, and local, state, and federal government, I think it's great that there's three components, because now there's a checks and balances system. Whenever there's just one unilateral decision line, I don't know that we're going to make a lot of forward progress, because there's not that accountability piece. But when you know someone's going to check on your progress, you're much more likely to work hard to get those positive outcomes. And that's what we need for our students in the United States. So when we come to funding, responsibility, accountability, and support, those four pillars, I think, really can make a difference in those three different components that really make up our decision-making process for the educational structure in the U.S. So I think it'll work fine, as long as we make that a high priority, and we keep the idea of focusing on the well-being of each adult and student to the forefront. So the program and course learning outcomes, how this assignment correlated to those outcomes, it definitely related in the resources. They required thorough evaluation of school level governance, and learning the understanding of our educational system really helps me understand the evolution of it and how we got to where we are now, and hopefully what would need to happen to further our progress, and the role of the building administrator in that process. Relevant, most definitely. I have a much better understanding of the funding for schools at this point, as I did not understand it correctly. So that's been very, very helpful for me. The things that I also learned is, I really think we need another way to judge success other than just state assessments. I'm not against state assessments, that's fine, but I think that should be one piece of that. Now, I'm not usually one to bring up a challenge that I don't know the answer to, or don't have an idea, and I don't have a good idea on setting up alternate assessment strategies, but I would be open to working on that, because I think it would be beneficial. And then lastly, when we're talking about reflecting, this is not I've always stayed away from the government piece of things, because I've always felt that I don't know that I mean, yes, I can understand it and that's great, but I can't make a difference in it. So not going to fill my time with that. I'll fill my time with things that I can make an impact on. I have a better respect for those that are choosing to use their time on focusing on the school governance at the different levels, because we do need to work together and there needs to be communication. So one thing that I think I will focus on more is being an educational advocate for students and the system that we're working within. I think we need that, and we need to have more communication there. So I need to make that a higher priority. Additionally, I think looking for grants is important in these rural settings where you have low socioeconomic status, and if that's what's funding half of our school, that's that's a little rough. So I am already signed up to go to a grant writing training here coming up. So this was very, very helpful for me. My last page is my references. And thank you very much and have a good night.